Actually, it's a microphone similar to that I have.
All righty, stick to the story here. We got a special treat coming up. We're live at the Hilarious House of Friegtenstien. Well, we're not really live, but we're at the Hilarious House of Friegtenstien, and we got two great, amazing guests here.
For yourself, Dave. Some of us are live.
Some of them are live. One of them got here just by the skin of his pants on time, but that's okay. So anyway, we got a great treat. We've got Mr. Mitch Markowitz from Hilarious House of Friegtenstien, and all the way from Niagara area, St. Catharines, Mr. Lee Sterry. Lee Sterry's the host of 610. He does a great show on Fridays called This Week in Geek, and you'll be seeing him here in a minute. So I'm going to pass this around to you, Mitch, and then I'm going to switch the camera around.
Well, thanks a whole lot there, Dave. So are you picking up from the beginning, or what?
You can start now.
Start all over again? Just pick up where we are. Okay, well, I was going to finish my shower, but since Dave's here now, I guess we'll just go forward with this. So anyway, as you've already heard, my name is Mitch Markowitz, also known as Super Hippie from the Hilarious House of Friegtenstien. We're here today with Lee Sterry, who is probably the most senior, and I don't mean that in age, I mean that in level of experience and quality, radio guy in Southern Ontario for sure, maybe in the country. He's mentored half the broadcasters in the country, that's for sure. And we've decided to turn the tables a little bit here today. It was tough, the tables are heavy, but we decided to turn them. And I'm going to interview Lee because he's interviewed me so many times. Actually, he's interviewed everybody, the who's who of the entertainment industry. But this time I'm going to interview him. So tell me, Lee, I'm going to give you one of those stupid questions they ask. Okay. Have you got a middle name?
I mean, do.
Not that anybody cares. I understand that. Are you at liberty to disclose it?
I do have a middle name yet. Winfield is my middle name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've been on...
Not wind, as in wind bag, just win without the D.
Or as in Winfield Farms and E.P. Taylor, who owned Winfield Farms.
Yeah. No relation, I'm afraid, though.
Well, at least you've got a middle name. I don't have a middle name.
No?
No, my parents thought about it, and they couldn't come up with one they thought was appropriate for this little tiny skinny Jewish baby with a great big afro at birth. So they just give him the name Mitchie, and that's enough, and that's what it's been ever since, at least to my family.
Well, I appreciate the introduction, but you are the master of overstatement. You know that, don't you? I haven't mentored half the country. It's like the whole... No, I'm...
So, Lee... let me think. What's the most commonly asked question of me? What made you decide to get into this business? I mean, other than the fact that you were probably born with that dulcet voice, and you were probably a little kid crying, saying, "Wah, wah."
No, I wish. I was actually motivated to get into the business because I was in the music business. I wanted to get closer to the artists and all that stuff. And I thought radio was probably a cool way to do it. Little did I know, it really wasn't. But along the way, I fell in love with what I was doing, and that's the rest, as they say, is history. You know, it's one of those serendipitous things. Life happens, as John Lennon says, when you're making plans to do other things. So that's what it was. That's
very funny. I just heard a great quote like that one. I forget whose quote it was. Oh, Elton John. Somebody asked him about hits or something, and he said, you know, if I knew where to find them, if I knew where to go to find them, I'd write more hits. Like, you know, like they're just not out there. You know, you're writing, and occasionally you get lucky with a hit or two or three. And you've been lucky, and lots of hard work, because you've been hitting them out of the ballpark now for many moons in a number of stations, and they left your mark all over the country.
Well, and the thing that I was, you talked about being lucky, the thing that I was lucky about is to meet Dave Stick to the Story Benison, and hooked me up with you, and it's been a great relationship, and the radio reboot, it's not really a reboot, but the radio drama version of Hilarious House of Friegtenstien is in the works, and it's going to be a blast. I get a chance to play a small role in it, which is, any role is big as far as I'm concerned in that place, and I guess I get to play. It's typecasting. I get to play an announcer.
Yeah, well, they didn't have a hard time finding one with the right voice, that's for sure.
But we're really looking forward to working with you and Bleak Christmas Productions and all the people that are involved. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, it's an exciting project, and the good part about you and about your show, actually, on 610 AM CKTB, is it? Yeah. And the good thing about it is, you don't really have to have a radio. Just open your window and you can hear that voice coming at you from all points, east, west, north, and south. Let's see, any other great questions they ask me?
I think before you go on, you got to get me to do a Wolfman behind the Wolfman.
Oh, that's a great idea. I'll maybe hold up the Wolfman vinyl album, which was another, I think, a real coup in my life. I had nothing to do with it. I got a call about a year ago from a young guy from Calgary, Alberta, that's in Canada, and he said he had grown up watching our show and was a huge fan, and he would love to share his passion with the rest of the world, and would I consider licensing him to do a vinyl album. So he ended up doing 4. He did a Wolfman, an Igor, a Vincent Price album, and a Count album, and they sold out in like flash, like 2 weeks. 1,000 albums were gone out the window. I have a couple left that I'm making available here at the Tri-City SuperCon. I do it right this time?
Right.
Thank you. In Kitchener, Ontario. I'm here with Lee Sterry from CKTB and 610 AM, coming out of the great town of St. Catharines, great city of St. Catharines, sorry. And I'm here all weekend. I'm here today until 7, I think it is, and then tomorrow from, I think it's 12 until 5. By the way, there are a few Friegtenstien t-shirts and hoodies still available here. And Supercam here is sticking his thing out, and there you go. Those are the Friegtenstien t-shirts. And I got to ask you, this is a real serious question.
Oh, okay.
How have you managed to survive all those years in a studio that's 10 feet by 12 feet, sometimes with no window, no air, no nothing, just you and a microphone and a stool?
Well, actually, I had a bunch of jobs in the tenure that I was in the business over 40 plus years. But the times that you do spend in the studio are the times when you can really be creative, like you guys did in the studio when Billy did all those characters, and you're in basically a time warp, so to speak. And anytime the microphone goes on, you can be anything you want to be. You can create anything you want to create. It's your imagination provides the windows to everything out there. You don't really need the windows to be a part of it. So in all seriousness, it's a magical place when you're in there sometimes just by yourself, because you can invent anything you want.
So that's a very touching response. How did you remember that? Looking at me, you didn't even glance over at the cue cards. I'm kidding. There are no cue cards. Lee talks from the soul and the heart at the same time, and he does a damn good job of it. Anything you'd like to say to your audience, or Dave's audience, or my audience?
Just wanted to say that one of my heroes was this guy, both Wolfmen. The Wolfman Jack in the radio biz, and the Wolfman Billy from Hilarious House of Frightenstein, because I just loved him. I just loved the Wolfman. He was just absolutely perfect. And if I'd known I was going to be out here today, I wouldn't have shaved.
That's terrific. I'll just tell you a quick story about how the Wolfman character came from. We only hired Billy to play the Count, Billy Van, to play the Count Frightenstein. But we being my brother and I, kept coming up with new ideas for new characters. And every time we came up with an idea and Billy happened to be around, we said, you know what, we're thinking of doing a blah. In this case, it was a cross between Wolfman Jack, this was obviously an homage to him, and the real Wolfman, who was Lon Chaney in all those old Universal movies. And Billy said, oh yeah, and he turned around like Rich Little or any of those other great impersonators, turned around like this. 10 seconds later, he turned back. He was doing one of those, I am the Wolfman. and the Wolfman sort of grew from there.
Well, it was a pleasure chatting with you as always. Glad I could make it here, and it's a must see. And this is the Wolfman desk here from the actual show that we're standing behind, and the microphone and the whole thing. So that's where the magic happened back in the HAOF days, and it's a pleasure to see you getting this thing going again.
Well, thank you so much. It's so great to work with you again, and I'm so glad you came out to the show today.
Yeah, have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Go to black.